The late afternoon sun bled across the horizon as Alicia Monroe parked her black SUV in front of the small grocery store, stepping out in nothing more formal than a pair of faded jeans, a navy hoodie, and white sneakers that had seen far too many morning runs, her hair pulled back into a neat bun that gave away little of her true identity, because to anyone watching she looked like an ordinary woman on her way home from an errand. Maybe a mother, maybe a neighbor, certainly nothing remarkable enough to raise alarms, yet the truth was that Alicia Monroe was one of the most powerful women in the country, a decorated U.S. Army general whose voice carried weight in the White House and whose strategies had saved thousands of lives overseas. But today she wasn't General Monroe, she was just Alicia, grabbing some produce, a loaf of bread, and her favorite brand of green tea before heading home to cook a quiet dinner for herself, though fate had no intention of letting her evening remain quiet. Because as she strolled through the store aisles with her basket balanced on her arm, she noticed the way a store clerk kept glancing at her, whispering something into his phone, his eyes lingering on her skin, her hoodie, her plain sneakers, as though those simple details were enough to paint her as suspicious, and though Alicia had faced prejudice 1,000 times before, she brushed it off with the calm discipline of a soldier, telling herself she'd be out in minutes. Until she walked out of the store with her small bag of groceries and saw 2 police cruisers swing violently into the parking lot, lights flashing. Though no crime was visible, doors slamming open as 2 officers, young and jittery with the kind of arrogance born from inexperience and unchecked power, strode toward her, one shouting, "Hey, ma'am, put the bag down and step away from the vehicle," confusing Alicia because she hadn't even touched her SUV yet. She was still in the middle of the lot, but her instincts, honed from years of combat, told her immediately that this wasn't about law enforcement, this was about profiling, about assumptions, about the color of her skin and the way she blended into a stereotype that ignorant eyes saw as a threat. So she raised her eyebrows slightly, her voice calm but edged with authority as she asked, "Is there a problem, officers?" But instead of answering, the taller of the 2 barked back, "Don't talk, just comply, drop the bag." And in that moment the crowd began to form, curious shoppers halting their steps, some pulling out their phones, others whispering, while Alicia placed the grocery bag gently on the ground, apples rolling out and scattering, her bread tumbling onto the pavement, and she spread her hands slowly, palms outward, still calm because years of leading men under fire had taught her never to escalate. But the officers came charging anyway, one grabbing her wrist so harshly her bones ached instantly, the other twisting her other arm behind her back as they shoved her chest against the hood of a random sedan, snapping cold steel cuffs over her wrists while muttering something about a reported shoplifter that she knew had nothing to do with her, and though she clenched her jaw against the humiliation, she refused to cry out, she refused to let them see weakness, because Alicia Monroe was no ordinary woman. She was a 4-star general in the United States Army, commander of divisions, strategist for global operations, someone who had been saluted by men twice these officers' size and 10 times their courage, yet here she was being treated as less than human in the parking lot of a grocery store in her own hometown, her phone buzzing on the ground where it had fallen, lighting up with the image of her daughter's smiling face as the lock screen, a reminder of why she endured. Why she held her head high even with her cheek pressed against a stranger's car hood, and the murmurs of the crowd grew louder. "She didn't do anything. Why are you arresting her? This is wrong." But the officers ignored them, one even smirking as he said, "Yeah, we got ourselves a runner, thought she'd slip out with some groceries, huh?" Making Alicia want to laugh at the absurdity because she had bought the groceries, receipt still in the bag, payment already cleared on her credit card, but she knew better than to waste her breath explaining, because men like this didn't listen, men like this only heard what confirmed their prejudice, so she stayed silent, letting them dig their own graves deeper with every second of abuse they layered onto her, until finally she decided it was time to end the charade, because humiliation was one thing, but disrespect of rank, of service, of truth, was another. And Alicia Monroe was not a woman built to remain silent when injustice was at her throat, so when one officer shoved her upright, sneering, "Yeah, you're coming with us to the station, thief," she stood taller despite the cuffs, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that made him falter mid-smirk, and in a voice steady, cold, and sharper than the crack of a rifle, she said, Lieutenant General Alicia Monroe, United States Army. Badge number 452-19. Release me. Now. The officer blinked, stunned, his partner scoffing, nice try, lady, don't make up stories, but before they could shove her further, a black government-issued SUV with military plates screeched into the lot, and out stepped her aide, Colonel Ramirez, his voice booming like thunder as he stormed toward them shouting, "Unhand the general immediately," and suddenly the crowd gasped, whispers becoming shouts, "She's a general? Oh my God, they cuffed a general." Phones recording every second, the rookie officer paling as his hands shook unlocking the cuffs, stammering, "Ma'am, I didn't know, we didn't," but Alicia didn't even glance at him, her eyes still hard as she rubbed her wrists, turning slowly to face the gathered crowd, her voice carrying across the lot as she declared, "This is what happens when authority is abused, when power is used without thought, when prejudice blinds men to truth. Remember what you saw here tonight." The crowd erupted into applause, cheers, support, some chanting, "General! General!" while the two officers stood frozen, sweat dripping down their temples as realization sank in that their careers, their reputations, their very futures were already being shredded by the videos streaming across the internet, and Alicia, without raising her voice further, leaned close enough for only them to hear, whispering like a blade at their throats, "You handcuffed the wrong woman tonight. Pray that the investigation I file is the only punishment you face, because if I choose, I can do much worse." Then she turned, climbed into her SUV with Ramirez holding the door open, and drove away without looking back, leaving behind a crowd chanting her name, two humiliated officers trembling in fear, and the spark of a scandal that would erupt in days to come, a scandal Alicia Monroe intended to fan into a fire so hot it would scorch the department to its core, because this wasn't just about her. This was about every black woman, every man, every innocent soul who had ever been cuffed without reason, profiled without cause, treated as less than human by those who swore an oath to protect them, and General Alicia Monroe was not going to rest until the system that had tried to humiliate her was brought to its knees.